Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the state of our Kirktopia, political violence, and a turning point, or continued downward trajectory. So, today we are going to talk about current events again and how those relate to the situation in the general U.S. State that it's in. Last time I talked about the state of our dystopia, but um, this is showing it's proving to be a bit tricky to not talk about this guy. It's kind of it's government by Kirk, not Captain Kirk. But this guy, apparently, some people. It's interesting to see who knew who this person was and who didn't. I was just listening to some of the Black Liberation Media's takes on this, and some people were like, "Oh, I had no idea who this person was." Some people don't. I think it was described as, "Oh, it's a very internet thing," and it's like that was an interesting statement as well. It's a very internet thing. It's kind of like, doesn't most of the population in the world on the internet or have connection to the internet? Like, what does that mean exactly? um, he was a YouTuber, podcaster, um, and but there's actually a disagreement on the not really a disagreement. There's differing perspectives on like how important this person was to world politics, to U.S. politics. How visible he was, which is interesting. It's kind of an aside, not really the most important topic probably, but that's just something that I was just thinking about. Yeah, how exactly important was that guy to the U.S. politics, to in the world in general? I'll leave that as a question for now. Okay, I'm just checking my microphone. Sorry. All right, so political violence, turning point. Of course, Charlie Kirk was part of the Turning Point USA organization. I'm gonna try to be. I definitely was not a supporter of his politics, which is, I would say, I think it's safe to say that's very right wing. I'm gonna start. What does that exactly mean? Particularly in a place like the United States. But he was definitely somebody who had many controversial even in the United States on the right wing sort of statements that were very inflammatory. He believed strongly in the gun ownership was good. I think he believed that empathy was a made up idea. Didn't believe in that concept. He advocated for. He said he was making comments about the problems in the United States come from the left, from trans people, LGBTQ plus, and it's very anti queer rights, anti that kind of support for minorities. There's a video where he argued that's going around where he argued that slavery had some problems, but it was actually good. U.S. slavery of black people was a good thing. Black people were better. He basically said that it was great because they committed less crime, and so he made many. Those are very, very right wing statements that he's made. I mean, it is kind of ironic because he did say guns should not be controlled. People dying from gun violence, I think he said was acceptable and just part of the. I mean, he actually said that. Yeah, if there are school shootings, if there are people getting unalived for political ideology, that, or for any reason, that's part of the price of the right to bear arms. Like, it's basically, and there should just be more guns. And if there's enough guns, people will ultimately be safer. So that was his perspective. And now he, some people pointed out, he also said that the Palestinians don't exist, or shouldn't exist, or don't have the right to exist. And they just, they're not real. They're not around. And now Charlie Kirk is not around. He doesn't exist. So, there you go. In that sense, the point, his points have turned around and hit him in the neck. You know what I'm saying? The trajectory of Charlie Kirk's attacks have taken a big U-turn, right, and turned and pointed back at him, and now he's dead. So there's hey, what's up, Street Carlo? There's that, so in that sense, the trajectory of the United States has changed. The trajectory of Charlie Kirk's career has changed, which is to say, now it's non-existent due to ideas that he espoused. There's so many jokes that became made about that, and there's obviously a lot to talk about before we get too hardcore, so to speak, on this video. Let me just see if I can find that one that he had shared, or the short video that I was just talking about. Yeah, so there's many videos of this. Like, basically anytime he talked, it was always extremely I would say bigoted, very, very I would say even in the United States, pretty extreme right wing perspectives. I was obviously not a fan of that guy. I had heard his name associated with very terrible things. I'm a native. I mean, just for context, I am a native Hawaiian. We are, as a ethnic minority, as a person of color, and also a queer person as well. It's I'm not a fan of that kind of ideas and those kind of rhetoric and those kind of politics. As you can see, sorry, where did I bookmark it? Yeah, somewhere up there. Yeah, no, not there. Yeah, where he had argued that Charlie Kirk had argued or said that black people were better off in slavery and subjugation before the 1940s. It was bad and evil, but they committed less crimes, and so that's a good thing. He was basically an apologist, and he did say that, like, the biggest problem is we have too many black and brown gang members that's doing the majority of the violence, and that's his arguments are often like it's people of color, it's the ethnic minorities that are destroying America, and not. I mean, it's the thing is the person who unalived Charlie Kirk was not I mean, that's been that's a huge amount to talk about what has been happening vis-a-vis who the shooter is, right? But the shooter was not somebody who, shooter was a Republican, white conservative guy with Republican parents. Like he had like a gun in his hand from a young age. So he's somebody that was very much a on the political spectrum, was way closer to Charlie Kirk than the people that Charlie Kirk was and has been attacking on the left, let's just say left of him. So he's and some people actually think, I mean, I don't know exactly, who knows exactly, or the person that let's just say the person that is currently suspected right? Because it's not, the person that is suspected and has been arrested in connection with the shooting, right? We got to be careful with that. Is not somebody who is, a Charlie Kirk. He's not somebody who would be attacking Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk is on the right, right? It's not somebody attacking Charlie Kirk from the left. It's actually, if anything, it's that person might have been attacking Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk wasn't right-wing enough for him, according to all of his chat logs and the things that the suspected shooter has said and done and everything we know about him. Charlie Kirk wasn't right-wing enough, right? So it's actually, you need to be even more right-wing, or so all of this, which is the case, which is most of the actual the gun violence is done by white guys. I mean, whether that's Dylan Ruth, whether that's the shooters, the mass shooters, there are many of them, or just the general political violence in the U.S. and around the world. It's done under a white supremacist, colonialist, capitalist framework, and it's done. The people that pull the triggers, they're not what is described as the radical left. I think there was a right-wing lady who said, we have to stop these trannies from destroying America. I mean, that's anti-trans, anti-queer, not a great word to use, but like basically like it's the radical left, it's Marxist, it's these anti-racists, is social justice people that are doing the violence. But it's, I mean, even for Charlie Kirk, it's not. So once that narrative fell apart, then they started asking for thoughts and prayers. Oh, what have we have missed? Our society has failed the suspected Charlie Kirk unaliver. What can we do to help this poor white boy to maybe it's too many. Robert F. Kennedy claimed there's so many violent video games that glorify violence, and that's why it happened. Right? So it's like there's a immediate, once they found out who the identity of the shooter, right? The skin tone was closer to the shade of printer paper than a cinnamon chai latte. Then and it was definitely Republican conservative. I think it was also Mormon. That like Mormon Republican conservative. I mean, there's definitely a good for the suspect. There's a good evidence for the case that he's actually shooting. He actually did. If he was the shooter, that he did it because Charlie wasn't right enough. It's like you have to be more right wing than that, or just to start off civil war in the United States to make the U.S. even more right wing and bring about the full, America Third Reich or something. It's definitely not like Charlie Kirk attacked. I mean, if that's the suspect, it's not because Charlie Kirk was a right winger and the attacker was a left winger. You know what I mean? Or even like a liberal, which is, I would say liberal is not quite as directly right wing as a conservative, but they're both right wings. Liberal and conservative in the United States. Yeah. So anyways, I didn't get as much sleep last night as I would have liked to, so I'm going to try to slow down a little bit so I don't swim through my thoughts too erratically. Let's see here. But yeah, it is hard to feel sad for a slavery apologist. I mean, let's be 100 about that. It's not great. Everyone is talking about political violence, right? And what that means. Let me look at the bookmarks really quick. I think I had something about it. Yeah. So one of the comments was political violence could devour us all, written by the moron who wrote that it was quote unquote legally possible to kill Palestinan children. As Revolutionary Blackout Network said, Vietnamese dead, America, Koreans dead, America, Libyans dead, America, Somalians dead, America, et cetera, et cetera. Charlie Kirk dead. Oh no, he had kids. Yeah, I mean, if you want to see how liberals act as handmaidens to fascism, watch those how those fascist movements grow because of the outpouring of liberal sympathy and framing of fascism as simple political disagreement. I mean, yeah. Yeah, there's so many directions to take this. It's hard to really choose one. But let me try to just move in one direction at a time. Yeah, so when it comes to like the political violence topic, right? What is acceptable political violence? Or not what is acceptable political violence? What as that one poster was talking about, or that person commenting on The Atlantic, yeah. All political violence could devour us all. Charlie Kirk's murder was one of the worst moments in recent American history. That's somebody who also was in support of the political violence against the children in the ongoing atrocity scape that is the Levant region. Like 9/11, right? Just recently passed, and after that, the U.S. did mass multi-million person political violence, right? The Iraq War. This is a war of aggression. The war in Afghanistan, Libya, mass political violence in Syria. I mean, right? It's kind of mind blowing when you think about it, right? It's like, and then but one person gets unalived in the United States, but it's not the person. It's not the right kind of person, right? The person that's supposed to be unalived in the world. The correct political violence is when you commit political violence against brown people, black people, global South people, African, Asian, Latin American people, people in the Arab world, the people that are not doing what a global capitalist, imperialist, racist system and order led by the United States wants, right? So anybody who has oil under them, if they have oil under their feet and they're not white, basically, because Canada has oil under their feet, but they're on team white, they're on team Charlie Kirk, so they can mine it and they can get a cut of it. But if you have oil under your feet and you're in Libya, or if you have oil under your feet and you're in Venezuela, right, then the political violence of sanctions that reduce food and medicine entering your country, which studies have shown has killed 40, just in 1 year, killed 40,000 Venezuelans. That's also political violence. And that political violence has disabled and vulnerable people, children, elderly, starve and die from sanctions, right? That's acceptable political violence. That's not political violence. That's just their fault and poor economic policy under communism in Venezuela or something, right? That's so. But the reality is that's all political violence, and that's totally acceptable. That's how all colonization is political violence. All neocolonialism is political violence. Capitalism itself is political violence from the ruling class that has pro-capitalist, pro-oligarch, right? Pro-selfish individualism, total corruption of all government. That's politics, and the politics that's against the working class and the underclasses in general. That's political violence. So the United States is run on political violence. It's a history of violence that's political, like the movie starring Strider, whose name I can't remember. But he also in that movie, right? History of Violence. Actually, let me think about that. That's actually an interesting little cinematic history dovetail. Viggo Mortensen's character in History of Violence, right? Because I'm going to connect this and not just have a random Silver Spook pop cultural half an hour diatribe and digression. History of Violence, right? It is an action thriller by David Cronenberg. But the main character in it, right, He lives in a rural town in Millbrook, Indiana. Um, uh, he's hailed as a hero, right? When he stops a crime, right, or spree killers, right, and he's picked up by national news media. But then it turns out, so he's like, oh, he's such a great guy because he stopped this violence, right? But then it turns out later on that he's discovered, and then he's visited by the mob, and he's actually a former mob hitman, right? But I mean, this is kind of how the system works, where you have a system, the entire system, right, is based upon, and the United States is based upon mass ongoing violence of all kinds, economic violence, right? It's economic violence, the violence of slavery and genocide of Native Americans, right? Chattel slavery of African people brought in chains. That's all violence. The entire existence of the United States as a whole, and the global colonial system, as global racist colonial system that's been 500 years of this process. That's all violence, right? And then America itself is founded on that settler colonial mass anti-black, mass anti-indigenous violence. That's all political violence. All political violence. It's bigger political violence than all the mass shootings put together. When you look at how many people have actually been harmed, how many people have been unalived during that process, right? It's just a massive amount of. It's so big that it's kind of people just. But the trick is, if you do a big enough violence, so it's the big lie and the big violence, then you can bury. The people just like can't. A lot of people can't handle even thinking about it, or just scared to think about it, right? And so because it's so big and so pervasive, it becomes the bloody water that you and all the sharks are swimming in. You don't see all the body parts floating around. It's kind of like it's like watching streams of children being unalived, right? In GAZA. How much political violence was that? That's only a tip of the iceberg, right? When we talk about the history of political violence in the United States, and the global racist capitalist colonialist order led from the first world Western white countries. So all that political violence is just so everywhere that when one person gets shot, like Charlie Kirk, that happens to be from the class that has dominated the world, using its white capitalist, white capitalist colonialist political violence. When one of them gets shot, then it's we have to think about thoughts and prayers, or not the thoughts and prayers. That's where people get shot in school. But we have to really dig deep, and this is not who we are, right? All this, right? This is not who we are. This is so sad. We have to change our ways. Think about how the kids are watching movies and playing video games. That's making everyone unalive. I mean, there's actually not statistically shown through that if you play those games, if you play violent video games and watch violent movies, I mean, a lot of people do that. I mean, every action movie, every Hollywood blockbuster, basically every movie has some kind of violence that is a mega big. I mean, Avengers, even Superman. Zack Snyder, he like wiped out entire cities. When he was just trying to, do like an X-ray laser eye blasted Zod. He just like accidentally cut entire skyscrapers in half. I mean, people are watching violence all the time. Not everybody becomes a somebody who goes into the real world and does this kind of violence. So that argument's been happening since Triple X. RFK is bringing that back out of the closet. He's airing that one out. The video games are causing the shootings, like Charlie Kirk shooting, and so we have to get rid of the video. They've been trying to get rid of the video game for. There's been stuff going on there for especially recently in Steam and on itch. So that's that. I'm not gonna jump down that rabbit hole yet. My point is that there's a history. There's all this violence. So when this single shooting happens, we all have to stop and focus on that one, especially if it's shooting the wrong kind of person. From the perspective of the power structure that does all the mass majority of the political violence, right? And so, and so obviously a lot of people that probably follow this stream and this YouTube channel, you probably recognize that, but it bears being pointed out that I mean, it's particularly when the same day as Charlie Kirk was as the same day as Charlie Kirk reached the turning point in his life expectancy, and it went to zero. Many, I think it was hundreds of children in GAZA were unalived. They were suffered political violence, right? And there's also a Colorado school shooting, and it was just not even mentioned, right? So, I mean, even that, it's whose lives get elevated and selected as worth more than others. The U.S. I remember politicians and people used to say on CNN in the noughties, one American life is worth 10,000 Iraqi lives. They said that like straight out loud. They just said it like on CNN, not even on the right wing news in that time. It's like every Arab life is worth less. They also said the same. The Europeans have said that about the Russians, even recently. Every Russian life is worth like 1,000th of one European life. Every African life is worth less, right? One African. So it's okay if we colonize and plunder and starve Africans and coup, color revolution, bomb their countries and suck their wealth out, and because every African life is worth just less than 1,000th of each white American or white European life. I mean, that's just racism, colonialism, and capitalism. But they're saying it. They've said that out loud, and so that's where, like, well, I mean, if some people in the Middle East died, that's not a story because that's only a fraction of one white life from America, right? And so that has been normalized, in the U.S. and in the Western world. I mean, that's I mean, that's just that's just got to go. That is just the tumor in the human soul that has been eating much of the species for centuries or millennia. It's got to go bye-bye, and because it's not really, you can't even really argue. It's like, how do I convince you that you should care about other people that don't look a certain way or have a similar net worth or nationality as you, right? And the thing is, it's sometimes, those people, like, they're very far gone. And then things like World War II, which is where, not the United States and not the Western Europeans, they didn't do the majority of the fighting, by the way. But then sometimes a lot of those people who believe in themselves being better and supreme and able to commit any violence against anyone who they deem lesser than themselves, sometimes they call it fascism, ethno-supremacism. That's what's happening inside of the GENOCIDE settler colony, right? Sitting on top of all the children, giving them exploding Vienna sausage cans, pretending like it's food, right? And and then they come to America. They even leave. They leave, and then they're the most just rampant extreme version of Western culture, which is about supremacism, unfortunately, and the ability to commit violence based upon those ideas. But they're masked in liberal and mainstream. Mainstream conservative is less masked. Liberals are way more masked. That's why they run everything, because they can hide it the best. They're the most cunning, but they all operate under that system ultimately. And yeah, it's not something that can really be argued, unfortunately. Sometimes, especially if it gets very far gone, it's not something that it's hard to say what exactly is going to be done about that, right? What is the turning point for the U.S.? I mean, in World War II, many people who held beliefs like Charlie Kirk's, they had bullets enter their body, not always in their neck, and then exited their body. It's kind of like a Wolfenstein game. Many bullets entered the bodies of people who had extreme political ideology, and then they stopped living. You know, it was called that was what happened. I mean, in Japan, in China, the 20 million Chinese died fighting the Japanese fascism and the European fascism. 27 million Soviets actually did the majority of the fighting. I'm sorry, the West is ahistorical now, so I know people are gonna get mad about that. But like, you know, and some people also that chose inside the United States and other places to go to the front line, but they didn't do the majority of the fighting that were against that supremacist ideology. But that was mass political violence. But the left, the communists and the anti-fascist Third Reich Germany fighters, right? They were also committing political violence, right? So in that sense, right, even liberals who will say, well, this is not who we are, and we can't let political violence, run amok, or it'll destroy our democracy or something, whatever. I don't know, sure. No one will have human rights, and it'll collapse our vibrant human rights, freedom, and democracy. Having our great American country is gonna, you know, our beautiful wonderland of peace and tranquility and prosperity will, you know, will dissolve if we allow, you know, people to be shot based upon political ideology. And but the thing is, I mean, I'm not advocating for anybody to do any political violence. I'm just saying that, like, there are situations where if you have a vast and extreme amount of extreme, virulent, noxious political ideology like fascism, right? Even liberals will say, "Oh, thank goodness that the fascism was defeated," right? And they'll make movies like, you know, Saving Ryan's Privates, you know, Saving Private Ryan. They have Captain America does political violence when he punches Nazis, right? Fights them. He unalives them, like Red Skull. They make Indiana Jones punch Nazis. He also causes the deaths of Nazis. That's liberals made that movie, right? But what they don't want to acknowledge is that, like, that was the U.S. didn't do the most of the fighting. They benefited like Ford and IBM billions of dollars worth of contracts, benefiting from fascism. They also, you know, push they allow that's they build. The liberal is what fosters and builds the global fascists for its billionaire capitalists to use as the fist, the foot soldiers of their global racist capitalist colonial system. And that but that's also why they make all the movies. They do the mind control. They run the show. Because that's who's actually capable. In Foundation, there's a character called I shouldn't say who it is, but there's characters who control large numbers of people, right? And there's a front man who is like very violent and murderous, and he likes, you know, causing pain and ripping people's skin off and doing horrible things. But then behind them is the liberal, right? He's the conservative fascist front, and then behind him is the liberal that's actually pushing everyone in that direction to get the will done. It's Foundation is a science fiction TV show I have made a video about in the last month. That just popped into my head because it involves mass mind control and manipulation of people's opinions. Conservatives are not good enough at theater and art and writing to be emotionally, intellectually, and artistically manipulative to control people's minds to do for their own personal benefit and domination, right? Conservatives are not sophisticated enough to do that. So it has to be the liberals that do that. That's why they make the movies. But I see there's this Amazon Prime frequent video movie maker called, I think it's called like Uncorked or something. They're like the right. If you ever watch actual right wing, like made by like dyed-in-the-wool conservative movies, they're terrible. I mean, they're terrible at acting. It's not the kind of, it's very low quality media. It has to be liberal Hollywood that makes the Avengers, that makes billionaire philanthropists, arms dealer capitalist billionaires like Elon Musk in Iron Man and Captain America, right? They have to do it because they have the ability to actually manipulate people through movies and through media, television, news, books, everything, games. They have the ability to, because you have to be at least somewhat in touch with your emotions, but you also have to be deeply, malicious at the same time, right? That's the liberal. The conservative is just very simple, right? That's why they just go to church. And the liberal has a 4-year degree and can, make entire economies scream and turn entire continents into bloodbaths, right? By having the CIA jukebox, talking points, news, having Ayn Rand's motion picture screen guide for the preservation of American values manipulate the entire planet through Donald Duck, cowboy movies, and Hollywood, and the music industry, and color revolutions, and all kind of other fun ways to control the planet and all the people in it. Anyways, what's up, Grant? Yeah, so what is political violence? I mean, I would say that all of that, I would say that liberals that mass manipulate people into doing political violence, that is itself political violence. That's the highest order of political violence, right? The British and the French and the United States that funded and armed and backed the fascists in Europe, right? They didn't necessarily pull the trigger. Churchill and Ford, the billionaire Ford of the Ford Corporation, and American Western capitalists and imperialists didn't pull the triggers in Germany on the side of fascism, but they profited, they supported, and they benefited from that, as they always do. So that should also be counted, right, as political violence, right? That is insight. They have funded by funding and by promoting their ideologies, or simply just allowing doing cover for liberals, doing cover for conservative, extreme right wing, and fascist ideologies, are themselves complicit in all the violence that is done in those ideologies and by those people that actually pull the triggers. But you see, that's the thing, is it has to be liberal, because the liberal is smart and cunning enough to remove themselves, right, from the front line so they don't die and they don't get accused, right? They have the useful flunkies. They're like the low-level mob henchmen, the conservative. But the mob boss is always a liberal, has to be. So that's why that's part of what the Atlantic is doing here. Political violence could devour us all. And what all of these, CNN, Atlantic, Economist, BBC, right, and all of these, Ezra Klein, I forget which one it is, by saying this was one of the worst moments in recent American history, right? And then we have to like, let's all calm down. And they're all expressing thoughts. They're all expressing like their sadness, and we all just have to pause and think about, how sad it is that Charlie Kirk has passed, right? The ideas he espoused is very close to what the Nazis espoused, right? And the liberals are doing the same thing again, right? Which is by basically covering for him, and because they're not showing what he actually said. They're not showing when Charlie Kirk said slavery was good. They're not showing when Charlie Kirk blamed trans people and queer people and minorities for all the problems and doing the majority of the violence in America, and they're the root of all evil and these kind of things that he has said and done. They're not showing any of that, right? They're just talking about, it's so sad that he's passed and we all have to just come together, which ultimately benefits the conservatives and the right wing. And that's how the Democrats and Republicans are tag teaming. The liberals and conservatives are working together, just as they did when that comes to Palestine. When it comes to any of the wars, they are all working together there. Even the conservatives might not even realize, right? And they have spats and disagreements about who exactly should be elected and be president. Some of them don't realize actually that the same billionaire imperial capitalists fund Republican, conservatives, and liberal Democrat candidates, right? It's something that some of them internally don't even realize they're basically two sides of the same puppet show. But but and some liberals maybe don't even realize that they are also part of that show, especially some of the ones that are just like writing their opinions. They might not even realize how they are actually empowering more right-wing white supremacist violence, right? They might think that they're really what they're doing is helping America to heal or something. I don't know what Obama personally thinks. It's hard to know exactly. He's one of the most successful of the global imperial mass political violence doers. Somebody pointed out like Obama was calling for we have to. What did Obama say? I forget what he said. He got a comment about Charlie Kirk and about 9/11. We have to just remember that this is not who we are. This is not who we are. This is a terrible thing that has happened. We have to just never take violence. Let's never forget the lives we lost on September 11th. Let's honor their memories and encourage our first responders to put themselves. Okay, that's about 9/11. Yeah, here we don't know. This is what Obama said. We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children. As many people have pointed out, as somebody else pointed out, there was a school shooting that same day in Colorado, and 3 children are in hospital in critical condition. That's just one point. Another point is Obama had a list, including American citizens, of who to drone strike to death. It's called the President's Kill List. He did 10 times more of these political violent drone strikes than George Bush, the Republican, right? Remember, in the noughties, for those youngins, if you don't remember, George Bush was the end of the world. He was going to destroy everything. It was the worst president ever. He's ruining America. And in particular, he was engaging in the Iraq War and the Patriot Act, and then it was the war. And then Obama showed up, and he actually, did even more political violence than George W. Bush. He started the war in the horrible atrocities that, speaking of mass political violence in Libya, he had a massive rollout increase of the drone strikes. He also helped the capitalist bankster classes and the global oligarchy when the U.S. was teetering on the abyss. The U.S. financial global capitalist system was on the edge of the abyss with the global financial meltdown. He helped he saved capitalism, in a lot of ways. He saved the most rotten financial entities like J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, the predecessors of BlackRock, and he propped up this horrible global capitalist system. That's a huge amount of economic political violence that he helped perpetuate. He shut down Occupy Wall Street, and that's on top of all the other things that he's done. And now he's out there talking about, again, this is a perfect example where the liberal is empowering the political violence of the conservatives and the fascists and the extreme right and supremacists. Right? Nothing about Obama. You are a black person. I mean, he's also from Hawaii. So Obama, like me, is a person of color from Hawaii. This is embarrassing. I mean, he's always been embarrassing to me, but Charlie Kirk is, as somebody, as I pointed out previously, he literally said that black people like Obama were better behaved under slavery, and how great he basically was an apologist for the enslavement of black people. Sorry, I'm trying to get that. Kirk argued that black people are inferior, that they should be murdered for pre-crime. Polite liberals will applaud you this in the Times, say, free Palestine, and they'll accuse you of anti-Semitism and fire you from your job. The disrespect liberals show for black Americans is disgusting and disqualifying, which is true. Ezra Klein had this article. Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way. And Obama similarly, right, is doing the same thing. So, this is why he is the ultimate liberal, because he himself is the black president of the United States. It's So he's got the ultimate armor on. It's like, you can't say everything I do has to be true, because I am the perfect candidate. I'm a Harvard educated black man. I know America's racism better than anyone else. And how dare you accuse me of being against the interests of people of color and ever say anything that would benefit fascism and white supremacy. But he's out here, what is he doing? He's out here saying, basically, almost applauding Charlie Kirk. He doesn't quite say, I love Charlie Kirk, I Barack Obama, I Charlie Kirk's best friend, but it's nothing to do with what Charlie Kirk actually espoused. Nothing to do with Charlie Kirk himself said gun violence and political gun violence included in that, and the shootings in schools, right? This happened at a school. That is acceptable, and it's good because we need that, because we need guns in people's hands, because that's what creates a free society. He had all various ways of saying that, but basically, it's like people getting shot in America in all kind of situations, including for political reasons, is necessary, and I stand by that. So Charlie Kirk, technically, I don't know if he's too dead to comment on it. His neck, his vocal cords don't work anymore because a bullet, exploded his throat. But if he could talk, he, based on what he has said previously, I don't know what he would say now. Fascists have a way of kind of suddenly turning. They have their come to Jesus on the way to Damascus moment right after they're about to die. Sometimes, now that the violence has turned on me, I'm actually not that anymore. And I'm going to move to Argentina, or I'll be put in the U.S. government like what the U.S. did after World War II. Operation Gladio and the Paperclip and all the other operations too. And you did 731. Let's take all of the fascists in the Pacific and the European theater and put them in charge of our space programs, government positions in the U.S. and Europe and all around. So, right after that, I don't believe in political violence now, and I don't believe in supremacism now. I'm all changed now. So I don't know, maybe Charlie Kirk, but if we base Charlie Kirk on what he had actually said, he would have said Charlie Kirk's death was justified. That's what Charlie Kirk would have said. Like 2024, 2025, September 9th, Charlie Kirk would have, if he didn't know who it was, he would have clapped for Charlie Kirk's death. September 10th, Charlie Kirk's death. He would have clapped for it. That was what he believed. So all this is not who we are. How could you spit on Charlie Kirk's memory? Charlie Kirk said mass gun violence is great. He was for this. He was for what happened to him by his own words. But the liberals are still out there saying, no, that's not what Charlie Kirk said. Charlie Kirk never said anything like that. Charlie Kirk didn't believe in this political violence. We all need to calm down and let's have an ayahuasca ritual and put on some Native American headdresses and chant and find our souls somewhere underneath the stacks of $100 bills covered in blood and cocaine. Let's just dig deep and let's all go to church and let's say some rosaries. Let's just be peaceful and good Americans again. And you never were. That's the liberal. We gotta do. We don't know what it is for anyway. So that's amazing. That you're gonna stand a white supremacist that said that black people deserve slavery. Barack Obama. That's why they chose him. He is such a great liar. He's such a great manipulator. He is a master. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Obama was the greatest. He was the greatest Caesar to ever lead a world imperial capitalist racist empire. With the Aquila for a symbol. That's the eagle that the Romans had. Obama was the greatest Emperor Palpatine that has ever lived. He's the best manipulator. It was all after Obama. After Obama, la deluge. The U.S. really started falling apart after him. I'm not saying that in a good way, because he propped up these terrible systems. the United States, and the global capitalist system might have disintegrated in 2008 and 9 if he didn't save it. Because it was melting down. It was melting down, and he came out and he said, but he's really great at doing that. This is not who we are. I'm a black man that says America is not racist. We are better than this. Let me blow up a bunch of black people in Africa and Arab world very quietly. But a lot of liberals and not extreme white supremacists would look to him, and he unites the empire. He brings the Death Star back together right when it's about to be destroyed. If Barack Obama was Emperor Palpatine, he would have healed the Death Star before it was blown up by Luke Skywalker. You know what I'm saying? Like Barack Obama would have said, Luke, this is not who you are, Luke. Luke, this is not who you are. Don't shoot that X-wing laser into the Death Star and blow up the Empire. Luke, I am a black former stormtrooper. I am in charge of the Empire now. And Luke, this despicable political violence of, you and Princess Leia and your rebel fighters rising up against the Empire. This is not who you are, Luke. This is not who you are. Luke, I don't know what motivates you to try to shoot and kill Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, Luke. Okay, but that kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy, Luke Skywalker. Michelle and I will be praying for Captain Phasma's family tonight. So tragic that she got shot by, I forget which Star Wars character, and especially Captain Phasma's husband and their 2 young children. Captain Phasma was a mother, what is his name? Hux. Oh, it's so sad that Hux died. Hux had 2 kids, beautiful kids. They had their whole life ahead of them. Now that, planet, that imperial commander, think about that wife that's never gonna have a husband come home. Think about all those stormtroopers, right? Think about Luke. When you shoot a stormtrooper, think about that. He was a husband and a father. Think about who you're killing, Luke. This is not who you are, Luke Skywalker. Like Obama, he could have stopped all revolution and we'd have permanent imperial capitalism forever and racism. That was the America that America needs to heal it. Is him in charge forever? They need like clones of him. I call it the not the Cleon Foundation dynasty, but it's the eternal get out of racism free card imperial repairman. Just always healing America, just healing that back together so we can blow the entire planet up some more. When the U.S. collapses, it's going to be like a series of Barack Obama tweets going like, America, this is not who we are. Let's pick ourselves. Like, yes, we don't have any clean water anywhere, and we're in a civil war. But just remember, liberals and conservatives are fighting over cans of pork and beans, but that is not who we are. America has never been a violent place. And I say that coming from Chicago, I come from and, just going to civil war and balkanizing and falling to pieces. That is not who we are. We need to just sit down at the kitchen tables that we don't have because we're eating on cardboard boxes because our housing is all in flames and all of our infrastructure is disintegrated. And we've been outplayed by bricks, and the global majority is coming together as we disintegrate. But that just, pick yourself up. Obama is like he's like the liberal Reagan. I'm going to stop going off about it. This is not a show about it, but I just want to point out, but that is very much like what is happening in this moment from the liberal side. From the conservative side, it's just like, it's a different narrative. It's, you see, this is what happens when we have woke DEI, when we have trans people. There's multiple conservatives that said it was a trans person that did the shooting, and then when it turned out not, it's like, oh, thoughts in Paris. Can we dress somebody up? Can we dress somebody up with like blue hair, take a picture of them, and like Photoshop them behind Charlie Kirk or behind the shooter, and just like make up a trans person? Because that's basically what's happening, right? People are just making stuff up. Right, it's what did they call it? It's a post-truth world. It's always, but the West is that's another deep big lies that there's ever been truth in the Western world in general. It's always, everything is based on lies. But these people are like just like straight up making up who the shooter was before anything was coming in. The police are always lying as well, right? And even what they are saying about who the actual who is the suspect right now. You know, they're trained by the IDF, okay? So the NYPD. So what they're trained to? They're trained to just make up whatever. And the IDF is trained by America. It is all the empire. So just lie everything, deny everything, accuse everyone else of your crimes. So that's a total chaos. That seems like that's what's happening. So, yeah, I'm not saying that the liberals are, oh my god, and so the conservatives, we should vote for them. No, obviously they're just a different flavor of horrible. But anyways, political violence, turnpike, or downward trajectory. So, okay, let's come back to let's come back to the who is the shooter, right? So, Tyler Robinson in custody after Charlie Kirk shot. So the suspect that they have in custody, right, is this Tyler. I'm just getting a random audio from 9/11 calls obtained by NBC News paint a picture of panic that unfolded moments after Kirk was shot. Wednesday, emergency operators in Utah released audio of 20 calls they received Wednesday. One caller said Kirk was shot in the neck and rushed off in a black SUV, and that at one point stopped abruptly, right in the neck. So I don't think he has long. He said, "I saw everything." When asked about where the shooter went, the caller said he had no clue, but that Kirk was facing the courtyard and the shot hit the left of his neck. Another call was from a father who reported his daughter was at UVU, told him there was an active shooter. She was pretty hysterical. It sounds like she was in the building with a bunch of other people, but she said she doesn't think that they've gotten him yet. Anyways, a squeaky clean, considerate kid who grew up in a family that celebrated his academic wins and time together in their suburban Utah community is now accused of murdering conservative activists. Tyler Robinson, arrested today after a days-long manhunt, shocked his community and families. Grandma Debbie Robinson spoke with NBC News that she was not aware of her 22-year-old grandson, who she described as squeaky clean, and attended the event at the Utah Valley University where Kirk was killed. Robinson, an electrical apprentice, had developed a recent interest in politics. His community near St. George in the conservative southern Utah said that wasn't typical of his family. The chairman of the board of supervisors in Johnson County, Iowa, said the county will defy an order from State Gov Kim Reynolds to fly flags that have staff in memory of Kirk. Chairman John Green said in a post on Facebook that Kirk did not encourage inclusivity. I condemn Kirk's killing, regardless of who pulled the trigger, Green stated, but I will not grant Johnson County honors to a man who made it his life's mission to denigrate so many of the constituents I have sworn an oath to protect, and who did so much to harm not only the marginalized, but also to degrade the fabric of our body politic. Anyway, so this is like some of the fallout from this. This is just mainstream corporate media, so don't put too much stock in any of that. So they did get a suspect. Let me open up another one of these so I can. Okay, let's see. The Guardian just issued a quiet retraction a few hours ago for their fabricated quote from a high school friend about Tyler Robinson being the only member of his family that was like really leftist. This article is updated December 12th to remove quotes after the verified source who attended high school, Tyler Robinson, said after publication that they could not accurately remember details of their relationship. White Christian father is a Christian minister, donated to Trump's campaign, conservative, dressed up as alt-right. Somebody said that they got to explain to the family what those people are. Dressed up, being carried by Trump on Halloween. Happy Halloween. Handing out candy. These weirdos dish me. Tyler, some guy from a meme. Austin is the crazy end of the world. Homeless guy, and Logan is a fancy skeleton. Anyway, so anyways, so as I said earlier, if we take it that this Tyler Robinson suspect, if you accept that this was the person that did the shooting, this is not a left-wing person. This is not a free Palestine, anti-capitalist, Marxist, communist, trans person. They keep trying to find a trans person that did. I keep seeing it pop up all over corporate media. I mean, liberal and conservative. Twitter's like main story was like trans person shoots Charlie Kirk or something. That was like one of the first ones that came up, and then it changed later, right? They're just trying whatever they can to pin it on the left, because the liberals and the conservatives all want to get rid of. Right, they're all the right wing ultimately, as I pointed out. Right, one is just the more advanced, successfully manipulative one. They're all trying to get rid of the left. So if the liberals and conservatives can all pin anything on, ideally a black, trans, radical leftist communist, if they can just pin it on like Che Guevara's daughter, that would be perfect. If they could pin it on like Xi Jinping's niece, who is also like part, black or indigenous, they could just like, you could pin it on somebody like that. They're all trying, just throwing an idea out there, see if they can make it stick. That's how the West works. It's not by science. It's not political discussion. There's no civic debate. It's just, let's make some shit up. Throw it out there, see if it sticks. Right? That's how they coup Ukraine. That's how they coup South and Central American and African countries. Let's just make some stuff up. Let's just make some stuff up and make it try to stick. About why that happened. Like that's how they couped Hawaii. Let's just make some stuff up. Let's write it on a napkin. Right? It's called the fraudulent annexation that was never ratified by the U.S. Congress. It's called the annexation of Hawaii by the United States. Never happened. Right? So let's just make some stuff up, and then we just point enough guns at people, and then it will stick. Point enough guns at people, delete enough Twitter accounts, suppress enough alternate narratives to our narrative, and then, right? The problem is the U.S. is having trouble sticking anything in particular nowadays. They're not quite as strong as it used to be. And the Western imperial, white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist world, but which is interesting because now they have this, which begs the question. It's kind of like, why would you choose? If you, I mean, I'm not saying this is the case. If the United States oligarchy, which is chaotic, is choosing Tyler Robinson as the suspect, why did they choose this guy? Right? Some people are saying, well, they're choosing that guy because, it's Israel's trying to get rid of somebody who might have said something that was not in their favor. Somebody's trying to start, some elements in the oligarchy are trying to start civil war, start more political violence in the United States to justify more crackdowns and more cop cities and, the empire coming home fully. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Why would you do that, right? Why not choose a black trans person to pin it on that person, or choose somebody that's like somebody that would be definitely on the actual left? Let's just choose somebody from like somebody who listens to a lot of Silver Spook streams, somebody who listens to Black Liberation Media, somebody who's like, let's just throw somebody under the bus, right? And then it's if a high profile white conservative gets, unalived, that is shooting people and then starting a bunch of more violence based upon that violence, is a strategy that is been used by, imperialists around the world. They do that, and they have, that is what they did in Ukraine. Then they caused mass violence. There's always snipers on roofs. Super said people are not weirded out by snipers on roofs because snipers on roofs are just everywhere. Right, in the United States, on schools, right? Somebody was pointing out, like, at sports games, school events, concerts, you see snipers on roofs. The president of the United States was successfully hit. He didn't die. Remember, the current president of the United States was shot around this time, right? Late 2024. Donald Trump was hit, and it hit his ear. He didn't. Somebody behind him died. There's multiple assassination attempts of the United States president. At that time, he was a former, and he was running for re-election, right? Now, they both failed. So but they were attempts. And Charlie Kirk had a successful attempt on his life, right? So political violence is constant. I mean, there actually were multiple U.S. politicians that died this year because of their political ideology. Like this has already happened. Charlie Kirk wasn't even a senator or representative, right? But there have already been multiple that have died. I mean, there was the one, just off the top of my head, she was shot in another U.S. congressperson was shot, and like she survived, but it went through her head, and she had severe brain damage in the early teens. I mean, this stuff is happening all the time. Japan also had their leader shot, right, with a handmade gun. They shot the guy because he was because the Japanese leader had a far right a descendant of the imperial fascist Japanese family, and it was espoused right wing politics, and then he died. This is part of even in the U.S. and the Western so-called democratic political system. These political violence is happening all the time. They just pretend like it's just one big happy family under Western liberal capitalist democracy. It's never been that. It's super violent. I mean, Europe is like falling apart right now. This is the other context that we'll get to. I talked a lot about the wider context last stream, so I'm trying to focus on this particular topic. But I mean, the greater context, and that's the continued downward trajectory, is this is not really a turning point. USA. Turning Point USA is now dead, like Charlie Kirk. Or he is, and so the leader of Turning Point organization. So that the Turning Point, that's gone, but the turning point. This is not a turning point for the United States to the worst or to the better. I don't think. This is part of a continued slide in a long history of political violence. From the greatest mega violences of racism, capitalism, colonialism, as I talked about earlier. The slavery, the genocide, $450 trillion pillaged from the Asia, Africa, Latin America, stolen from Native Americans, a native land with black slaves on the United States soil that built the founding fathers, wealth, the primitive accumulation, all of that mass violence, mass plunder, mass death, mass slavery, mass racism, which Charlie Kirk was an apologist for and said was right and good and just. Colonialism was good, slavery was good, capitalism and stealing and removing indigenous people, genociding them was good and had some bad parts to it, but ultimately it was a net positive, right? And Charlie Kirk celebrated the mass political violence of the last 500 years of that racist capitalist U.S.-led order. He loved it. He said empathy is wrong. Empathy was a mistake. Empathy is a made-up idea. That's what he actually said. Empathy is a leftist buzz term that doesn't have any meaning. Empathy is for the weak. Empathy is wrong. The truth is might makes right. White makes right. Might makes right. Power makes right. Guns make right. I feel like he really did believe in that. My God is better than yours. I pray harder than you. My God is better than yours. My race is better than yours. My gun is bigger than yours. My ding dong is bigger than yours, and that's why I have, whatever. I'm more violent than you. I win. That's fascism. That's supremacism. That's colonialism. That's Western culture. We have more guns than you. We're taking your stuff. We're going to kill all your people. We're going to take all of your African lands now. We're going to carve it up. We're going to take all your Native Americans. We have bigger guns than you. We tricked you. We're going to starve you. We're going to give you smallpox blankets. You lost. Too bad. That was Charlie Kirk's belief. And then he died from it. Because funnily enough, according to them, he wasn't right-wing enough. So the trajectory of the United States, or the trajectory of, I would argue, all the Western unhealed descendants of Greco-Roman trauma and the racist capitalist colonial system for centuries, if not millennia, it's certainly for the last 500 years, the trajectory has been, it's always been a downward trajectory. It's been upward economically for Europeans, Westerners, capitalists for the last several centuries for some of them. But like this is, in terms of the human civilization, the last 500 years is a downward trajectory of increasing evil, malice, cowardice, rot, racism, like it's spiritual, psychological, and social cancer. All of that. It's horrible, right? Nobody has really liked any of that. Even capitalists that come to America. America has been the place where you come to be the worst you can be, as I said last stream, right? Nobody really likes that system, but it's kind of like, but it would be nice to have a lot of money and bling and, you know, fucking levitating jacuzzis, and like I could buy a lot of Maseratis. It's kind of gross, I know, but I mean, I'm just gonna give into my worst nature and come to the West. I'm gonna come to America. I'm gonna come to Europe. I'm gonna come to the colonizer capitalist world, and might makes right, baby. But like nobody, like that's a really sick, you know, and like inside of it, it's like, well, I mean, I'm just gonna have a lot of really expensive dinners, making all this money. I'm just gonna like lord it up over people that are black, because it feels good as a conservative, or as a, you know, the conservatives more relish the white supremacy and the supremacism, and the liberals more relish the money and, you know, and having all the nice things, right? And writing about their high thread count bed sheets, and writing about their $300 eggs Benedict they had last night, and writing about all their trips to the Louvre and they're being a jet setter, right? But under that's you know, you might have an upward trend in the total accumulation of wealth in the West, the total accumulation of white power in the West, the total accumulation of, you know, U.S. vassal states or Western vassal states, you know. But that might be, but it's always going down, you know. This is all a descent, you know. It's all a descent, but now because in terms of your soul, in terms of human society, in terms of total net human happiness and the well-being of the earth, and also other organisms that are all dying due to pollution and climate change caused by racist capitalist colonialism. So that sense, it's all along. There's not been a turning point for the better by Charlie Kirk's death. There's not been a real turning point towards the worse for Charlie Kirk's death. This is not who we are. Liberal rhetoric is nonsense. This is who the U.S. has always been. Charlie Kirk is the latest in a long list of billions of people that have suffered, died, shot, starved, sanctioned, fought in imperialist wars, you know, had their throat slit, were scalped, right? Like the settlers of America. Charlie Kirk is the billionth drop in billions of drops of blood in the Star-Spangled Bucket. This is just a continuation of the downward trajectory of the diseased, soul-sick, soul-lost Western so-called civilization that's just a barbarian nightmare with very good PR people. It's a continued downward trajectory. That's what I really think. This is not going to particularly change America very much. A lot of people are going to make a lot of money trying to survive by grifting, by putting news out about it, as if it's something new. It's not. It's not really something new. Everyone's talking about it, you know, because it's better for Donald Trump than talking about how his administration is toast and it's done a horrible job and Epstein files. It's better for Republicans and Trump because we're not talking about Epstein files. It's better for liberals and conservatives and the people that are unaliving children in GAZA, because you're not talking about all the children they unalived in the little settler colony in West Asia, right? So it is win-win for everybody. We can all talk about this guy and how we all gonna find our souls again when there's never no soul to find in America. Really, right? We're gonna come together, and nobody's coming together. America's falling to pieces. You know, also in the economic, political sense, it is breaking apart. The U.S. dollar is collapsing. I mean, let's zoom back out. The U.S. dollar is collapsing. China has just announced they're dumping even more and more U.S. dollars, not using more and more of that. The U.S. is trying to do coups, color revolutions, fight proxy wars around the world. It's not changing the trajectory of where the world is moving, which is away from the West. It's moving away from that system. It's moving towards multipolarity. It's moving towards like Africa is rapidly growing. The countries that are the global majority, colonized world, right? The people that Charlie Kirk despised because they were weak, they're all getting stronger, right? And by liberating themselves in cooperation with South-South cooperation from the global non-white colonized world, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. I mean, Brazil is cooperating with Nigeria. They're cutting new deals. They're doing every day. They're doing less trade in the U.S. dollar, losing their financial hegemony. The U.S. military is falling apart. China just launched the show that they could basically delete the U.S. off the face of the earth whenever they feel like it. They definitely can't. U.S. can't win any wars in South China Sea or against China. Even any proxy war. The U.S. is trying to go to war in Venezuela. I don't see that popping off. I mean, if the U.S. actually wants to make a move, I mean, they're launching their warships into the Venezuelan off the coast of Venezuela, but Venezuela has Russian and Chinese military backing, and everywhere the U.S. just lost to Yemen, the poorest Arab country. Venezuela has more people, over 1 million people in their army that are ready to defend their country. The United States, half of America half of America is not prepared to pick up anything. I mean, a shovel. They're not even want to work in America because of how horrible America is. Nobody likes America, you know? And inside America, there's infighting happening. So, I mean, you can throw some money to try to buy a government here, coup a government over there. You know, they're trying in some Pacific and Asian nations right now. Whether it's successful, we will see. Arguably, I mean, if your proxy war in Ukraine is any evidence, I mean, just having a proxy war, even getting a government under U.S. control, you know, I mean, I'm not talking on a grander scale, right? The state of the global situation, right? If the U.S. had not succeeded at the coup in Ukraine, and you know, because of a lot of belligerence and putting weapons and targeting them inside of Russia, which is what part of the part of what it was the impetus for the beginning of the larger scale invasion as part of the already begun 2014 proxy war after the Maidan coup in Victoria Nuland and neocons and also McCain. It was bipartisan, again, conservative and liberal action there. But if they had failed at that coup, the United States might not have pushed. If Russia had not been forced into a position, right, to begin rapid de-dollarization, right? If the U.S. as part of that proxy war hadn't seized $300 billion worth of Russian assets, maybe countries in Arab countries, African countries, South American countries would be less rapidly exiting the U.S.'s ultimate power, the biggest power, which is its world reserve currency of the U.S. dollar, and the sanctions and control over global energy, economic flows, and all supply chain and all global commerce through the weaponization of the U.S. dollar and control through the U.S. dollar system. So arguably, like, even the U.S.'s attempts to try to turn and convert all these various countries, these are backfiring more and more. I mean, so that's just a little. I mean, it's not related to Charlie Kirk specifically in this political violence, but that downward trend, which is going to keep happening, which is going to result in more political violence. It is going to result in more political violence because the United States, globally, economically, obviously the tariff backfiring is that's a whole other one, right? With the U.S. losing around the world as just one of many recent events. India, Russia, and China getting closer together because of the U.S.'s attempts to lean and push India in a certain direction. That was a whole other epic failure, massive epic failure. You spent decades trying to pull India closer through the Quad, more into the U.S. imperial capitalist global interests, and then with this one, maybe Trump and the U.S. imperialists will patch it up, maybe, but that was a massive, huge, just one of many failures. And so, but those global economic failures that are causing inflation, that are causing, U.S. and Europe are falling apart. The global Starbucks, the latest I just heard, Starbucks might be leaving China. That's a huge market. That's 1.4 billion people. One of the biggest. It is like the biggest single market basically in the world. If Starbucks loses that, that's why Apple, the tech companies, any real business, do not want to be forced out of China. Whether that's Apple, whether that's the U.S. car companies, whether that's the other big tech companies, whether that's fast food and Starbucks, they're going to be losing billions and billions and billions of dollars because that's where the biggest market is. It's not in the United States and it's not in Europe. And every single day that those economic losses are mounting in the United States, France, France's debt is growing by millions of dollars per hour, and the number of millions is increasing every single week, basically. Why is that happening? Because Africa, which is especially the Sahel region, which is where they take trillions of dollars of their wealth and stick it in French pockets, is what is paid. That is the great political violence that maintains the imperial colonial capitalist structure. That's what holds, to the extent that it is together, the West together, is by basically bribing off the masses with stolen loot based on the blood and death and slavery and plunder of the global majority, 90% not white world. And Africa is getting free. 1 billion people are breaking their chains right now, and that is causing losses to Europe. That's going to increase the political violence in Europe. It's going to increase the animosity because there's going to be less to go around. The elites, the billionaire class, the oligarch class, they don't want to take the losses. They're going to take it out of more increased austerity. They're going to increase oppression. They have to increase the police. They're hiring I think 80,000 troopers or 80,000 police or paramilitary in France to suppress the uprisings because of how fast France is deteriorating. Just as one example. Same thing for Britain. Britain is like a third world country. The quality of life in Britain is beneath, definitely beneath actually even the average Russian existence, definitely beneath the Chinese existence, and in some cases it's basically a second to almost third world reality, where Burkina Faso is giving away free housing and free healthcare based on their own internal successes of actually breaking their chains. Also, the thing where there's a lot of grifters that are just whenever something happens in the world, it's always the U.S. has done that, and they win every single time with a color revolution. These are these geopol news grifters, basically just I report, because they got to survive. A lot of them are Americans or Europeans or Westerners, and they need to get their blue check mark cut today, or the YouTube ad revenues or something. I don't know. But the reality is that it's not all wins, right? Because if it was a win, because they would have said when it happened, a lot of these people said Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, they're all having color revolutions, and America's going to control all their gold any second now. And it's they're definitely not. In fact, Canada is disintegrating because Barrick Gold, which is a major Canadian precious metals corporation, is getting defeated in Mali, which is in Africa, which is where mountains of gold and revenue flows to prop up the, nicer North American settler colony, right? In the Toronto Stock Exchange, where they park all these ill-gotten, stolen African jewels and loot, as the colonizers of Europe have always done. But that is falling apart. That is falling apart. And the elites of Canada, like Mark Carney and all of his banker friends, as a dual central banker of Canada and Britain previously, they're going to say we're going to shore Canada up. Donald Trump is going to say we're going to shore America up. America and all Western corporations and all Western colonial operations are losing everywhere. The BRICS is growing, and that means that the elites are going to keep running out of the flows, the mega flows. Again, the mega political violence is the ongoing imperial, colonialist, capitalist, racist violence of the entire earth, right? That's all of that. The whole U.S.-led order is a giant planet-wide Death Star violence. It's bigger than it's like a billion Charlie Kirk deaths. That's ongoing. It's just taking all these people, causing the mass starvations of people all across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. The Syrians were starving because of U.S. aid full of literal seeds that were supposed to grow wheat, or they're supposed to grow tomatoes, and they injected damaging organisms and microbes to destroy Syria's soil. People are starving. Just the starvation, right? It's like millions and millions of Charlie Kirk deaths worth of just the starvation. Never mind the bombings. 500,000 to 1 million people die from U.S. and EU sanctions every single year. Every single year. And then you get one Charlie Kirk. That's not even the shootings. That's not the drone strikes. That's not the missiles. That's not blowing up Tehran blowing up people's families to try to overturn the Iranian government. Again, how successful was that, by the way? You've excoriated all the liberals in Tehran that wanted to have 57 flavors of ketchup and Taylor Swift concerts. Now they're like, long live the Iranian Revolution. We have to resist the great Satan. So, but that was political violence. It's all political violence. But the ability to commit mass global political violence, that is the real ultimate violence, that is all systemic in nature, is, thank goodness, running its course, and it's the ability to get it done. The weapons, the rare earths, the germanium, the antimony, all the core metals to make super advanced multi-thousand degree temperature heat resistant magnets that go into missiles and go into sensors and these motors that you need on hypersonic and other advanced jet and modern military aircraft. They're all running out because China has it all. It's so the ability to do so China is the peacebringer. They are stopping the greatest political violence by demilitarizing the greatest political violence doer, the U.S. and the Western imperial capitalist racist system. You know what I'm saying? They're taking all the guns out of the real shooter's hands, not the Charlie Kirk shooter. The Charlie Kirk shooter was just like, who knows, man? Who knows? Who knows exactly? I mean, I have theories, but actually, I'll drop that one since I come back to this topic before we wrap up. I maybe it's this Tyler, the current person that is suspected. Maybe that's the guy. Maybe, but let's think about it a little bit more macro. Okay, last year there was the one of many high-profile political violences. There was the United Healthcare shooter, the claims adjuster. Right now, it was blamed on Luigi Mangione, but I have a whole stream on that. I mean, many people have pointed out there's so many discrepancies in all of that, right? And it's including there is no actual evidence that the gun, that the bag and the gun and all the items were like of the UHC shooter were dropped in Central Park or in a locations. I forget exactly the whole rundown on that, but basically, like, they don't have any clear video footage of the guy who did the United Healthcare, political. Now that was on an economic, out of the frustrations at the capitalist oligarchic and particularly the privatized healthcare, for-profit healthcare, universal death care, universal wealth extraction scheme they call healthcare in the United States, right? Symbolized by Brian Thompson, who was, who through his corporate greed and his literally using Gen AI to deny 90% of people's life-saving medical treatments to them erroneously, right? And using quote unquote AI. And he was unalive based on that. It was clear. They said deny, depose, right? The statements from that medical manifesto were like on the shell casings itself. So that was political violence. Now, I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad or whatever. I'm just going to say that was violence based upon a anti-capitalist and certainly anti-executive, definitely anti-corporation political violence. It was not just some random mugging, right? And in the aftermath of that, right? Basically, they just threw up a guy who was convenient for private medical, because the Luigi Mangione is actually related to big healthcare organizations, but he was not somebody that was really wanted in the family. There was a lot of animosity within his wealthy healthcare executive or healthcare oligarch-filled family, and he was basically we want to get rid of this guy. They've never had a good. There's no solid case. They don't. So many details are made up, including like why was he in the McDonald's with a manifesto on him, right? This is like the IDF like pointing to a calendar and going, these are all the names of all the Hamas, right? That's the level of the NYPD investigation. And I mean, the fact that that's what flies for investigations in the U.S. What is the point of all these NCIS shows? It's the liberals. Why are you making all this propaganda with slightly more airtight cases? When you got somebody just going like, oh, here's a manifesto I walked into McDonald's with, like weeks after the thing, I'm gonna just walk into McDonald's or like and just like ask to be arrested when obviously he's like, I'm definitely not the guy. Anyway, long story short, so whoever actually did, now my point with that is that whoever actually did this, it's definitely political violence. Whoever did this is we don't know, but there's well, actually, getting to my specific theory. I'm not saying this is the case. This is a speculation. There was an old man in the audience who, right after the shot happened, said, "And I'd do it again." Right now, this old man, the police, and authorities came for him because, right, it's like, "Oh, you're gonna shoot again," and he was questioned and they detained him. But it's like, this old man, he didn't have a gun on him. He didn't have a sniper rifle that would be capable of doing such a thing. People were right there, he was in the audience, right? But he said, "I'll do it again." Why would anybody say "I do it again" right after a gunshot happens, right? It's kind of like, unless you have an extreme coincidence of like, somebody, like if he was talking to his wife and his wife was like, "Oh, hubby, why did you leave the toilet seat up?" "Well, I like it when the toilet seat's up, and I'll do it again." Like, if it was like maybe it was an accident, right? But if it wasn't an accident, it just happened to be a conversation he was having, and he just said that, why would anybody say "I do it again" right after a gunshot rings out and a guy is bleeding out of his neck, right? No, like the immediate reaction would be like, if you were, obviously he's not the shooter, but your immediate reaction would be, "Hey, what the heck is happening?" Right? People just duck their head down, looking around, trying to find out what is going on. It's a sudden, immediate, instinctual reaction, right? So then, like, I would say there is a chance. I'm gonna say this is the case, but like, whoever the actual shooter is, could just dress up like a cop. The Trump shooter, like, he walked past all these crowds of people, and people are like, even point out, there's a guy going on the roof to shoot Donald Trump, and everybody's like, "Oh no, he's probably supposed to be there. It's probably just the police in plain clothes," right? So like, whoever the actual shooter was, he could just set up and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just a cop. I'm here to protect our speaker today. I'm campus police. I'm some security," and just like set up and just be like, "Okay, yep, I'm just here to protect. Just keep an eye," because people, there are roof snipers all over the place. Like I pointed out earlier, on sporting events, at school campuses, big speeches, football games, like a Super Bowl. I mean, it's just commonplace. I mean, you want commonplace, militarized police presence under your fascist, very free democracy that Obama is definitely, he's totally right. America's the most peaceful, happiest, never did a single violence ever. If you have people like that all over the place, it's not going to be that hard to be in a position where there's not a lot of questions are going to be asked. The U.S. is getting sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. I mean, again, everything is just sloppy as frick. Like, they're rehiring humans to do all the broken AI. Malfunctioning, wasted large language model, NVIDIA pump and dump software. They call it Grok, OpenAI, and Meta. That stuff. Even XAI, they're all trying to hire humans back because they find out all the code's broken. And it's been wasting all this actual resources and money to do nothing, basically. But increase the stock market as the stock market and global capitalism is about to explode. And Jensen Huang is over there going like, "I got this, guys, just keep buying AI." So that's a total mess, right? But similarly, the way they do security in the United States is increasingly a mess. It's always been a mess, but now it's really, really becoming way, way, way less professional, right? Even the way people are just like saying, "Oh, I think it was a trans person." I don't have no evidence for that. I'm a U.S. senator. I'm a U.S. congressperson. I'm a U.S. politician. Like, I'm a talk. There's people just like making up whatever they want. I think everyone also has 75 COVID cases of brain omeletification plus Gen AI brain rot and AI psychosis. So they're just hallucinating. I mean, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people are like losing it, and so that's going to make it even more sloppy, even more unprofessional, even more. So long story short, I think that whoever the shooter was probably just was like, "I don't like Charlie Kirk." I mean, either from the far right, "I don't like Charlie Kirk, and he's not right wing enough. He needs to be like, Hitler said nothing wrong. Charlie Kirk, you got to get America's full Third Reich going. We need to get full Nazism in America going," right? And so it could be somebody like that. They are very violent, They are well armed in the United States. They're allowed to fester like so much, like a pustulant wound, because fascism the foot soldiers of liberalism and capitalism and all that whole system. So they're all over the place. They're all over the place. So could have been a right wing guy, or it could have been somebody. It could have been somebody who would disagree with Charlie Kirk and was like, a liberal. Like one of Trump shooters was, I think, one of his attackers was somebody who was really pro Biden. Could be a liberal, who just, I really hate the Republicans. Who knows? But whoever it was, is like, it was out of school, right? So Charlie Kirk said school shootings are acceptable and necessary. He was just talking about, saying something really racist. He was talking about how, like, most of the violence is all done by black people. They're all criminal. They're just the black criminals and brown criminals. That's the problem. And he's saying something about something transphobic, anti-queer. I forget exactly what he said, but he was being questioned and he was giving answers that were basically, bigoted, racist, and it's out of school, and it's like and he was, I think there's discussion about gun violence, and right after all of those discussions, right, out of school, he gets shot, right? Maybe somebody was just like, I'm sick of you talking about how gun violence is so acceptable, and let's see what happens. Let's see what you think about gun violence, right? I mean, who knows, right? But it's kind of like whoever did that, you could have fired off shot, timed in a way. Like the claims adjuster who waited for Brian Thompson to go to that specific place at that specific time, knew exactly who he was going, was never facing any cameras. The claims adjuster, he's still out there. Let's be real. He or she or them or whoever the claims adjuster, the person that unalived Brian Thompson, the guy's still out there. There's nothing conclusive that comes through. The U.S. is so sloppy. It's like, okay, well, people have stopped paying attention to Mangione because America's dying. So we just, it's. I mean, I know this. He's still, Free Luigi. That he's, they haven't proved anything that he's done anything. But he's been suffering a lot due to all of this, the fallout, right? On the need to make America, whose police commit more crimes than the average citizen, the United States police that solve on average less than one felony per year, and are literally just the foot soldiers of racism and capitalism, mostly beat up on protesters, beat up on people trying to stop a genocide, and people that are trying to pay their rent, doing evictions and beating up striking workers, and mass arresting black and brown people to feed the prison industrial sweatshop complex, so that America can have cheap labor for capitalists under racialized capitalism. I mean, that's what the police's job is, right? And then they're not gonna solve any crimes. They don't solve crimes. They just do whatever their master, rich guys want, and then they make up stories that they feed to journalists that publish it, because journalists and the news media and TV shows that do propaganda, like Cops, the show, Paw Patrol, and all the rest of it, all are part of an imperial, capitalist, racist, conservative, and liberal complex that all justifies that. So nobody's going to solve any crimes. I don't believe that. They're going to choose. Each side is trying to choose whichever culprit best suits them. They're just making up suspects, right? Like the Brian Thompson person, they did it in such the Brian Thompson unaliver. They did it in a way that it was not going to be they were masked, they were clothed, they made it clear what was written on the shells, what the point was, so it's undeniable. Like Aaron Bushnell made it clear because he had a video recording live streamed to make sure that the media narrative wouldn't be spun what he was standing for. Aaron Bushnell took his own life in an extreme act of communication. He said, I have been part of a organization that has been committing the most heinous crimes against humanity, and I am taking my own life as a U.S. Air Force member of the U.S. Armed Forces. I'm taking my life, setting myself on fire in one of the most painful ways to make that statement. And he made it very clear that was political self-violence to make a statement, a very courageous statement to try to stop the actual political violence, right? The large-scale industrial political violence of all of the ongoing Holocaust 2.0, right? And so similarly, so similarly, there's a good chance that Charlie Kirk the actual Charlie Kirk shooter was, I mean, it's not, again, this is speculation, but like, if you wanted to make a point about Charlie Kirk, you talk about gun violence, you talk about, black, you're talking about all of these, you're saying all these racist things, you're saying all these hateful things, and then you're talking about, everyone should have a gun, any gun violence is acceptable, school shootings are acceptable, right? Well, now I'm going to make a point. I'm going to school shoot you. I'm going to shoot you at a school, and let's see how you like it. If you think about it, it's not quite as sophisticated as Aaron Bushnell or the claims adjuster in trying to make sure that the message that is being hammered out, this is a theory, assuming that that's the message that somebody's trying to hammer home, which is that Charlie Kirk is a hypocrite. Charlie Kirk is, a hypocrite and a-hole and good riddance, or whatever they were trying to say, right? But like, if a guy in the audience, right, the old man in the audience knew it was going to happen. Let's say that the old man in the audience who shouted, "I do it again." Like, if you wanted to have a better chance of getting away with it, whoever the shooter was could have told someone who was going to be in the audience, okay, there's going to be a crack right after you hear the shot. Whenever you hear that loud sound, and you see Charlie Kirk's head or neck explode, his carotid artery gets severed by the bullet. Right after you hear the shot, shout out, "I do it again," so that I have more time to get away as the police and security are coming. So they'll go towards you first, right? Because these are also incompetent clowns. They can't solve any crimes. They still don't. Again, they solve less than one felony per year. These people are they're like big balls, right? They're big balls cop big balls. All of U.S. cops are basically just like professional, wife beating, brutal fascists. But these people are all. That's the level. Like, look at ICE. These people are like run away when there's a crowd of like more than 3 people. If there's a crowd half the size of the ICE, they just like run away screaming like little babies, right? Because that's what the West is, and that's what the U.S. is. Fascist babies. That's what Nazis and fascists are, which is a lot of who is in the police. So just scream out, "I do it again," right after you hear the crack. And they're not going to be able to do anything to you because you're an old guy. You're an old guy. You got nothing that looks like anything that could possibly be considered a weapon. You're not, maybe somebody that is not going to be particularly useful to liberal or conservative talk show, political establishment, oligarchs, right? Because you're not a white right-wing Republican. You're not like a black left daughter of Che Guevara. You're not, so just shout that out. It's going to be obvious that you're not the guy. Nobody's going to really want to do much to you. And maybe the old guy's like, "Yeah, I don't give a shit, man. I'm old. I'll rot in prison. I don't give a shit." Right? And he's like, "Okay, yeah, so just shout out, 'I'll do it again.' And that'll give me extra cover and time to get out of there." I'm not saying that's what happened. But I'm just saying, like, that's I'm working with that headcanon for the dystopian cyberpunk post-apocalyptic or in situ apocalyptic hell show that's America. That's my this American Netflix show is very entertaining right now. That's my headcanon for episode 4 of The Collapse of the United States and the Collective West. It's actually, it turns out, it's like we don't actually know who the shooter was, just like Brian Thompson, like just like all the other crimes we don't solve, right? Or all the other violences and whose perpetrators we don't catch, not necessarily crimes. The biggest crime is the existence of the racist capitalist colonial system. But all the smaller events of violence that we focus on, that we try to use to cover our big violence, right? We don't solve any of those who did those violences, right? Speaking of political violence. So I don't think they're going to solve this. They're going to keep making up stories. And the claims of job, the thing is, whoever unalived Brian Thompson, the healthcare CEO, could easily be the same guy who unalived Charlie Kirk. It does make a certain sense, right? You go after the biggest capitalist, one of the most hated, because even Republican conservatives don't like healthcare companies. They don't like healthcare CEOs. Nobody likes healthcare. There's like 80% of the United States across the board, all sides of the aisle are for universal healthcare, Medicare for all, or to reduce the healthcare bills or something, right? So you go after the most hated, like, capitalist villain, right? Like the head of the biggest healthcare company, Brian Thompson. And then, okay, what next? Okay, let's go after the biggest like white supremacist, like the biggest like leader or like a big figure when it comes to racism and that kind of the social right wing, the social hatred and problem and toxic culture. Let's go after somebody. Oh, Charlie Kirk, that guy is like a so he's not a super rich capitalist liberal guy. He's like a conservative like white power guy, and they go, we're gonna make a point with that, and I'm just gonna do it again, and then America don't catch me because America doesn't have police. America has crime doers. They're called cops, and judges who are crime rubber stampers. The criminal crime is the prison industrial complex and the capitalist system and the racist system. And I'm gonna make another point. I took out the biggest liberal capitalist. Now I'm gonna take up the biggest conservative fascist white supremacist, or one of the big ones, not the biggest maybe. But I'm gonna hit one. It's not because Richard Spencer was, remember, another thing, Richard Spencer was punched on college campuses for being a right-wing fascist or crypto-fascist supremacist about 10 years ago. There was Richard Spencer. This is America's, the continued trajectory of America. The turning point for USA, turning downward, is Richard Spencer was punched in the face, and then he stopped giving right-wing speeches in public. Charlie Kirk was shot in the face. So it's a more intense silencing of fascists. This one is just much more final. Like even if Charlie Kirk wanted to open his mouth and say more racist crap, he can't because he's too dead. Richard Spencer just got punched and he got scared. But Charlie Kirk said a bunch of racist. It's very similar kind of figures. Very openly supremacist, openly extreme right wingers. One got punched, one got dead. So that is a continuation. I would say that's a continuation of the downward a trajectory of the U.S. and the West and the non-stable, non-peaceful so-called democracy in the country. Anyways, let's wrap it up. Oh, hey, what's up, Leon? I'm pretty sure that's our friend Mesh. What's up? And Grant Scarborough and Carmen Internet. Thanks for making it in. Okay, I'm about to wrap it up. I'm about to wrap this up. Leon asked for more talking about current political topics, so there you go. Okay, anyways, but it's time to end this stream. If you'd like to support us at the Silver Spoon Cooperative, again, we are. I'm a native wine. Thanks a lot to whoever supported us. I'm a native wine, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist educator and commentator, and also game maker. You can help us out at ko-fi.com/silverspook, as well as patreon.com/neofeud. One last thing I want to point out. Somebody actually shared this. I forgot. I'll do this real quick. Somebody pointed out, some current events in Hawaii. I'm a native Hawaiian anti-imperialist, like I said, resisting U.S. colonial racist action here. And somebody said, you know what was political violence? Where did it say that? Somebody said, you know what is political violence is, the U.S. is removing all support for federal grants for minority students, including Native Hawaiians, Asians, and Pacific Islanders. Like, I know a lot of people that are going to not be going to school and not working in college. And, what I think about the U.S. education system is complicated, but this is definitely an attempt to remove people's access to education. It's a racially motivated attack. And I just want to point out that is happening right now. So on a local event, and there's many. They recently came after. Also, we had a Hawaiian healthcare system called the Queen's Medical System that was a universal healthcare system set up in 1859. It's actually the world's oldest formal universal healthcare system, and the U.S. has been trying to suppress us that way. That's another political violence, specifically against Native Hawaiians, which Queen's Hospital was. It was meant to serve all people of Hawaii, but including Hawaiians, and the U.S. has been trying to suppress that. So that's some local political violence. It doesn't get counted as political violence because it's not bullets passing through white man conservative bodies. Apparently, that's the bar you have to reach to be counted as political violence. But, I just want to point that out. So anyways, when you support us through ko-fi.com/cyberspook, you can help us to keep resisting all of that bigger political violence and other kinds of colonization and capitalist systems. And also, you can help us out at patreon.com/Neofeud, where you can give us ongoing support. I also make games that are about the problems with those systems, such as Neofeud 2. And I'm almost done with that. I just got all the voice acting, at least the first take, at least one take of all the voice acting done. I'm almost done. I'm on the last 25,000 words of 104. I actually got a whole bunch of words done this week. I got all of one of these characters edited and added to the game. I'm working on one of the big the $6 billion baller character right now. But anyway, so if you want to help us with this editing, these are working on these anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist retro video games. I just started working on some more of a new 3D Silver Spook game, which I'm excited to working on. I'm working on with the younger members of the Silver Spook Cooperative as well, and also making these videos. I've also paid covers for really cool books like this, which is a great book for people who are also gamers, and doing Silver Spook, land-back sustainable indigenous agriculture and environmental restoration, which is part of what we're doing here as well with this breadfruit trees, and these are aloe plants, and we're trying to just do this is actually, the sweet potato is growing against the pine tree now, which is cool. Anyways, so if you want to support us in in this time of extreme political motivated violence, when they're cutting all indigenous Hawaiian grants and support for Hawaiian education, help this Hawaiian education, this indigenous Hawaiian anti-colonial education operation, Silver Spook Cooperative, stay afloat by supporting us on Patreon or Ko-Fi, and it is greatly appreciated. Okay. Also, don't forget you can grab Neofeud on Steam. Help us out by grabbing Neofeud on Steam. It's on sale for the next little bit, for the next few days. And you can also help us out if you like Neofeud a lot, which is a retro anti-capitalist cyberpunk game. If you like those point-and-click adventure games, consider leaving even a very short review, because it does help get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. Oh, good. Somebody just left a review again, which is good. So he says, there are two kinds of art: subtle masterpieces that cleverly force one to confront their own beliefs, and a bleeding heart yelling into the microphone. If Disco Listen is the former, this game is the latter, and I in no way mean that as a slight. An incredible one dev passion project, and a must play for adventure fans, or really anyone who has started to pick up the fact that the scales of our modern day world seem to tilt further and further towards the rich. Well, there you go. So you say so Neofeud and Disco Elysium discussed in the same sentence. So thanks for that. Also, Neofeud is screaming into one's microphone. That is very punk, So that's what I mean. Neofeud is very cyberpunk because it has robots, flying cars, and synthetics and computer advanced technology. And it also screams into the microphone. Like when Protege, I had to do a lot of screaming into the microphone actually in the last week. Justice for Vatron Martin. Thanks a lot to Power Grotul and Gaurav Gupta for positively reviewing Neofeud. If you do that, I will share your reviews at some point on one of these streams. Not the negative ones, though, obviously. So, anyways, you can help us out by leaving those, and also don't forget at if you don't have Steam, you can also get Neofeud on Steam for Windows and Mac and Linux. Oh, Itch is just having problems today. I'm not sure what's going on. Itch didn't fly his flag half-mast. Itch didn't have 5 minutes of silence for Charlie Kirk, so Itch is being taken down. Because we all have to love our supremacists, right? Or otherwise we lose our websites and we lose our jobs, right? Which is, people get reprimanded. So anyway. But yeah, anyways, you can help us out at itch.io. I'm just joking. I don't know what's happened to itch.io. But you can also follow at Silverspook Games at wandering.shop and or at Silverspook Games at mastodon.social on Mastodon. We're also all over the place. Silverspook Guy is my personal takes, and Silverspook Games is the games-related stuff on Twitter. We're also on Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon, Facebook, all over the place. You can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue on Twitter and also on Instagram. And Holly is, of course, our great moderator and partner here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, sharing important education and information like that, and and important material like that. So don't forget to help to follow Holly as well. And thanks to all of our Patreon patrons for your support. Without your support, it's hard to keep doing this work. So thank you so much for all of that ongoing support. Okay, and then don't forget, Neofeud is on sale this week, so don't forget to go get Neofeud if you haven't yet, because it is still on sale, and every sale does help us to keep, as I said, doing this work, as well as the Patreonage. All right, until next time, keep mirror safe, polished, be excellent to each other. Hey, don't be. Also, I'm not gonna. Why I gotta? We don't have to celebrate people. If you want to be celebrated in your death, don't be a horrible person in your life. I mean, I don't like the Charlie Kirk, man. That guy was a nasty guy. What are we gonna say? Don't be a nasty person. The biggest political violence is all of these systemic injustices I talk about, and just let's have a real turning point. A real turning point soon. Not that BS that Charlie Kirk started. Okay.